Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast. I am your host, Natalie Q, and I'm super excited for this week's episode, Unlocking Real Estate Finance with Janessa Smotherman. Janessa is a loan officer who has been in the mortgage industry for the past 3 years. She was born and raised in Corona, California, and also went to Arizona State University for 2 years, but decided to go a different route in life and take a leap. Janessa is a very compassionate lender and is ready to help you reach your home goals and take the next step in your life. So, everyone, please help me welcome Janessa Smotherman. Hi, Janessa. I am so excited to have you on the Stay Grounded podcast. I feel like this conversation is going to be powerful, especially for our communities. You are actually someone that my friend Jessica introduced me to. So I love connecting through other people. And so you are going to give us the point of view of our lender today. I feel like our communities really need a lot of that education because we don't have it. And just to really get started, how are you feeling? Welcome.
Hi, I'm so thankful to be a part of this, and thank you, Jessica, for
Hmm.
introducing us and getting us that initial meet and greet virtually. I'm actually really excited to kind of dive into this. It's a different perspective that I feel like a lot of people don't really even know, no matter the age at all. I think a lot of people think that they're supposed to know these things and they don't. So I'm ready to dive in and kind of give a little bit of explanation of what goes into our side of things.
So, just to get started, I wanted us to really get to know you as Janessa first, right? Who is she? And what brought you to where you are today and how you are helping our communities?
So, a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in California, Southern California. I'm 25 years old, so I'm actually pretty young to be in this business. I went to college for 2 years. I actually moved to Arizona. I went to ASU, and sorry, I don't know why it's not. I feel like it was so long
Oh,
ago.
it's okay.
And I actually went in to be in sociology and then kind of figured out after the 2 years that it's not really what I wanted to do. I didn't see myself doing that. So I came back home and I wanted to get on the real estate side of things. So I actually wanted to become a real estate agent. And again, I had a great mentor. It just still, again, wasn't for me. I didn't feel that click or that drive doing that side of it. And I was basically presented an opportunity. I know I wanted to be in the real estate side of things. I didn't know if it was mortgage or me actually becoming a real estate agent. And then I had an opportunity to come on board with the company that I'm at now, which is Secure Choice Lending, to work under somebody, and I kind of felt it out, and that's pretty much how I got into it. I didn't think I was going to like it, and it just clicked. It was a crazy market, and that's kind of what brought me here. And then 2 years later, I got licensed, and now I'm officially a loan officer. So I still kind of knew I wanted to be in that real estate side of things. I just didn't know what direction I wanted to take it. And mortgage loans just stuck more with me, the chaos I feel like of it. I know
I
they're
love
both chaotic. They're chaotic in different ways, but I fell in love with doing that instead of presenting myself as a real estate agent.
I love that. I honestly I love that you're this young. I love that you're doing all of this so early on because for example, for me it took me a very long time to figure out what I wanted to do. So I kind of love that you're doing this so young and kind of
Yeah.
being fearless and just doing it because a lot of us stop ourselves from doing things because of fear. So
Yes.
kudos to you. I love that. I appreciate that you're this young doing it.
And that's a big thing for me, like going to college and figuring out, like, hey, this is not what I want to do, because I feel like there's that stigma, at least for me growing up, is I had to go to college, I had to do this. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just knew that it wasn't for me. And I'm glad that I cut it off when I did and realized what I love to do is this, not be stuck in a position that I wouldn't have been happy in.
I love that because it's not just a stigma for you. I grew up
Hmm.
and I graduated college and I loved the experience, but did I
Hmm.
necessarily need it for what I'm doing? No. And so I
Exactly.
love that you were able to really try to figure out what you wanted and you knew that the college thing just wasn't for you. And
Yeah.
rather than waste your time, you kind of move forward into a direction that you really wanted. So I think that's incredible. And kudos to you again because
Thank you.
that is not an easy choice to make. That is
No,
not easy.
no,
It's
it
not.
was not.
Yeah. And so, just to get started on this episode, I want you to tell us, well, describe to us exactly what they do and who are they in the process of owning a property.
So I am a loan officer, and basically, we kind of get that role into getting the clients the best financial option and assistance to acquire a real estate property or refinance. So my role into this is basically just talking to different clients and different families and different prospects and seeing if this is the right option for them, because real estate is a huge part of your life. It's a huge, I guess, jump of leap. If you would say you have to be seriously committed. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where we play the role in, like, almost a therapist,
Oh,
almost.
yeah.
Um, Kind of just seeing what is going to be the best option for you and using the tools and our expertise to kind of get you into that and help you basically get a loan and figure out if a mortgage is the correct thing for you, because some people think it is and it's not. You know what I mean? That's why some people rent, and there's nothing wrong with that. So our primary role is to basically help people use collateral for a loan and get a home, and necessarily investment properties, just investing that real estate. So we're the middleman to kind of help you get through that whole process and navigate what's going to be the best option for you, what's not going to be the best option for you, go over the interest rates, terms, conditions of a loan, basically what you need to know from start to finish on taking this next step in your life necessarily.
That is a huge step in our lives.
Yes, it's
So
huge.
even you just saying all that stuff, I'm like, oh my God, overwhelming, which is why I think it's so important for us to do this episode because there's just so
It
much information that people don't know,
They do not
like,
know.
yeah, and just like as a loan officer, you just guiding people through that process can alleviate so much stress. Just for example, I sat with Jess and through my conversation with her, I realized, well, I don't want to found a two-family home as a single person right now. I kind
Yeah.
of want to get a condo instead because it's a lot of responsibility when you own a home. And so I'm
Mhm.
sure that that's the type of thing that you navigate through as a loan officer. You're telling people this is what you need, this isn't
Yes.
necessarily what you need, this is your interest rate. Okay, this might not be the best option for you, and what would be the best option for you. And
Yeah,
that, yeah, that's overwhelming.
it is overwhelming, and exactly what you said. Example, like condo, there's just certain things that go into certain properties. There's different guidelines on different loans, so that it's a huge thing to understand, and I feel like that's why it's so important for a loan officer to be involved, because there is a lot of back end things that people don't know and don't realize, and that's where we're there to kind of step in and help them and guide them through that, because it is very, very overwhelming. If I wasn't in this business, I would have no clue about how to buy a house, how to even start, where to start, finish, start. Like, I would not know anything. So I think it's very important to honestly even interview different loan officers. You don't always have to go with the best person because, oh, someone told me about them. This is a huge, huge milestone in your life, and you want the correct person, and person that's actually going to care and dedicate their time for you and not just looking for a paycheck at the end of the day.
Yeah, honestly, I love that you said that because that's kind of what I was going to ask you next. Like, what questions should we be asking a loan officer when we're looking for one? Because you just said you don't have to settle for the first one that you get because it's recommended by someone.
Yeah,
Ask questions. So, what kind of questions should we be asking when we're looking for a loan officer? Because you guys are a huge part of this process.
yeah.
So, yeah, let us know.
I think the biggest thing is having that relationship first. I think you need to know all the details of somebody. You need to be so upfront and honest, because at the end of the day, like, we can get in trouble if something comes up illegally. You just don't want to be in that put in that position. We all kind of offer the same thing. It's just how you present yourself. And I think the best thing is connecting with that person. I think asking, how long is this process going to take? What do you need from me? I think just the demeanor of how that person's responding back to you as well as a loan officer, it's a huge, you, let me think. It's kind of hard to just, everyone asks different stuff. I guess the most important thing is that connection that you have with them. And are they going to be
Right.
willing to kind of hold your hand? You know what I mean? Because it is time and commitment that is involved in buying a house. And I think what sets people apart is honesty. I think a lot of people lie about what they can offer and what they can do and this and that. And you don't want to be stuck in a position where you're scrambling and you don't know what to do. And that loan officer isn't there to help you. It's kind of like, hey, yeah, I got all your information. You're in underwriting. I don't need to talk to you. I think that's the biggest thing is communication. And you need to know that up front if that person's going to be willing to answer your questions, call you in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Like, it's so
Yeah.
hard to really pinpoint what you should ask somebody. I feel like it's more if you think that they're going to offer you the best product and you think that they're doing what's right for you and have the best interest for you is the way that you should go about choosing a loan officer. And I would say the same thing about a real estate agent as well, you know? I think knowing that that person is going to be there for you, compare different options, don't just put them in the best loan program that they think, or, you know, I think just being straight up and honest and seeing if they're going to be able to exceed what you're asking them to.
I love that. I love that you said that trust was a big part of this,
Yes.
because I feel like a lot of people settle because they don't know, right? And so I'm a big believer in vibrations and
Mm-hmm.
getting those right vibrations from people and making sure that they're there for you because you are so unaware of what is going to happen next. And just
Exactly.
having that relationship of like of trust, like you said, of building this rapport with with a person that's going to be with you through such a long process because this takes long, I
Yeah.
am assuming, correct?
We can, so it kind of just depends. I feel like the process, honestly, it depends on a lot of things. I work at a mortgage broker, so we're not a direct lender. So basically, the broker world, we have several different banks that we can choose from. And I think that's an advantage too, is being able to navigate again what is going to be the best for your client. And it's just, you don't want to be with someone that isn't going to find the best thing for you. And I think exactly honesty is so big because I would rather someone be truthful and honest with me if I was buying a house and trying to sugarcoat me and then get me into something and then I'm screwed and I'm like, why did I do this? I should have went with somebody else. Like, you don't want to have that feeling ever, especially when you're buying a house.
Yeah, because it's such a big decision. It's
It's
such a big
huge.
commitment, and I totally agree. I love that the transparency part again is kind of sparking up in this conversation because guys, I we shouldn't have to settle, especially
Hmm.
in a process like this. This is either our dream homes or our dream property or rental property. We should be able to ask questions without being afraid, and
Hmm.
that's definitely something that I'm learning and navigating through this year. Just being able to ask the right questions and not
Yeah,
feeling afraid to ask the right questions because the right person, they'll want to answer them. They'll want to give you the best advice and where to go
exactly.
from there.
You
Telling
don't
you,
want the judgment either, as well.
right, 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 which is huge. And I think that that's a big thing in our communities. Just feeling a lot of shame for not knowing,
Hmm.
right? Like a lot of us don't know, we don't know what we don't know. And so there's just this shame around this perfection or needing to know the answers to all these questions, when in reality, we're forever students of life. And these are
Yep.
experts that are supposed to know these answers. They're supposed to know because this is what their careers. So
Yeah.
this is not our careers. And so making sure that we have somebody that is open and willing to answer these things for us or make us feel comfortable in the process is really
Yeah.
important. I've become more comfortable with the idea of just asking. So I guess to that question would be more of knowing how you feel around this person.
Yeah.
right? Like just
Mhm.
how this person makes you feel when you're asking questions and not making you feel silly, not making you feel like you're dumb, not making you
Mhm.
feel like you're asking the wrong questions, because I don't think
Yeah.
that there's ever wrong questions. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it just 100%, it just making sure that you're around this person that, because this process can be, it can be short, whereas it can be long.
Yes.
So I just totally agree with you with having someone that just makes things feel right for you. So thank you for answering that, because I feeling like when I connect with someone, that's what's going to determine how I'm going to hire accordingly,
A
right? And these
hundred
people want your
percent.
business. These people want your
Yes.
business. So
And
if
that's
they
the
want your
thing.
business, mhm,
Everyone wants the business, and again, obviously everyone wants the business, of course, but again, it's good to interview. When you go get a car, you want the best option. You know what I mean? You want the best option. You want to be with that person, not just like, okay, you're here, you're buying a car today, blah, blah, blah. It shouldn't be like that. It's such a, and again, I keep saying it, but it's such a huge milestone that you want to not go into this and have regrets and say, I don't feel comfortable. And I would want my client to express that to me so I can change that as well. But I think that is the biggest thing, is having that connection and knowing that you feel good about it, and
100%. I love that.
interviewing
I
those
love that you said that.
people.
Yeah, and interviewing those people and making sure that you're just not settling. I
Yeah.
100% agree. And now we're gonna shift to a question that I'm super interested in,
Okay.
because just so many people may not know the answer to this, but what are the requirements for someone that's looking to get a loan? Like, what do we need to get
Okay.
approved for a loan? And how much do we need? Just all the logistical things that you can think of that
Yes.
someone may need in order to get approved to get their dream home.
I think the biggest things, there's a lot that goes into it, but I feel like the basics, just to start the process, is credit history. It's a huge thing to have credit history. And I don't want people to get discouraged. Everyone hears the word credit and freaks out. You don't have to freak out. I mean, the minimum you have to have is a 580, which obviously people I'm sure don't know that. The minimum score to get an FHA loan, which is a first time buyer loan, is 580. And just having that credit, and you can always build your credit. You know what I mean? Like, I can pull your credit and it could be, I don't know, 400, but there's ways to help you get into that next step. And that's again back where choosing who you work with matters. You don't want someone to just pull your credit and be like, nope, I can't do it, blah blah blah. That's where you want someone to kind of tie in and be like, hey, you got this, we're going to buckle it down. Give yourself a realistic goal. All this stuff sounds like a lot, but it's not unrealistic. It can take you months, years, but the outcome is going to be worth it at the end of it. So I would say credit history is a huge thing. Job history is a huge thing. Having that 2 year work history. Obviously, there's different loans that you don't have to necessarily, we do bank statement loans, stuff like that, but I think the biggest thing is having a job history, a 2 year solid job history. It doesn't have to necessarily be, oh, you worked at Amazon and then switched jobs. Like, as long as you have that history, I think that's a big thing. That's a big takeaway. I would say if you get bonus income, make sure that you're getting that for at least 2 years so we can use it. It's just a guideline, it's a requirement. I would say having those assets, those funds, and with assets, it plays a huge role. I guess your question, how much do you need down? Everyone's different. So you can do as little as 3% down. You can do 3.5% down, 5% down, 10% down. With all of those, you are going to have a mortgage insurance, which that might sound foreign to a lot of people, but that's just insuring your loan. Um, so basically, the banks don't get screwed over necessarily. And then you putting 20% down, you're not going to have that mortgage insurance, and anything over 20%, you won't have the mortgage insurance. But as far as funds, I think that's a big thing. I always like to tell people, the more you have saved, the better. You don't want to be scrambling. You never know what's going to happen, and you don't want to be scrambling in this scenario. You don't want to be screwed and say, oh my gosh, I don't have that. That's a big thing with getting pre-approved. So we have to see all those funds up front. and make sure there's no large deposits, nothing like that. Your money has to be seasoned for at least 2 months in the bank. Obviously, people can gift you funds, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, you can have that, but it's all about documentation. I think the biggest takeaway actually for getting pre-approved is documentation, being able to provide that 2 year work history, your W-2s, your 2 months bank statements, just making sure that you are being honest as well too. You don't want, okay, hey, you sent me your pay stubs and the next one is looks a little wacky and funky. I mean, again, it's a big thing. So I would definitely say credit history, job history, funds, and then back to credit, we take getting pre-approved, you have a debt to income ratio. So we're taking all of your debt with your current income. And then, so that will be your back end ratio. And then your front end is your housing ratio. So your current income against your new housing payment. So that's the biggest thing. I would definitely say there's a lot more that goes into that, but I would say the biggest things are credit, funds, job history, no large deposits, don't be buying a house or don't be buying a car and then coming and saying, "Hey," because they're going to want the documentation. The underwriters are the ones pre-approving you necessarily. They're going to look at all your documentation and say, hey, yes, you can get this loan, or no, you can't get this loan. So that's the biggest thing. And I think having all the documents straight up front is the way we pre-approve somebody. And then the underwriter has the ultimate say, like, hey, you're going to get this loan, or no, you're not going to get this loan. So that's kind of a big part of us, is you can't be pre-approving people and not have any of this documentation, because then again, you're now in escrow and, oh, I don't have your last pay stub. Oh, well, I stopped working. That's again with the honesty. You have to be upfront, because everything can fall apart just like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love everything that you said. Thank you so much. And it brings a lot of clarity. But also for me, a question that I do have is what happens if you're, let's say, an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, you don't have a check every week. You have, your income can fluctuate. You can have off seasons, but you can have, really positive seasons.
Yep.
So what does someone do when they're an entrepreneur and they're trying to buy a property? Like, does that change things? Is there like a program or something for specifically entrepreneurs or people that have businesses?
Yes, so people that own businesses, we usually ask for the 2 years tax returns. There is different systems, which is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and some of them only require 1 year of tax returns. So that is kind of the biggest thing with entrepreneurs. It is more than possible. We have so many different loan programs for people that are self-employed, and I think people forget that and they get scared, like, oh, W-2s, or hey, they don't want to show their tax returns. Well, we have so many different avenues. As far as there's bank statement loans that I kind of brought up earlier. That's just you showing your bank statement, your assets coming into that account as a business owner. So you don't really have to even provide that documentation. And as far as like the off seasons and stuff like that, that's kind of where it can get tricky if an underwriter's like, hey, you made no money in August, but now we're in October and you just made 100 grand in that month. You know what I mean? Sometimes they just want an explanation for that. Like, why is
Right.
it doing that? And I think that's kind of where it can get tricky with self-employed people, but there's so many different loan program and options for them, which those are considered non-QM, which is a non-qualified mortgage. And that's not going to be the standard loan that we give somebody, but there is so many different options for self-employed people. So like, don't be afraid to do that either, because some people don't want to show their tax returns, and I mean, I don't blame them. So I think that plays a big role in it too, is people don't want to show certain documentation, which I totally understand. But then there's those people that are, hey, self-employed, I get a Schedule C, and we go off of that income as well. So there's different ways of calculating self-employment income as far as the standard W-2 salary employee. So there's so many different options for them.
I absolutely love that just because, for example, I work at a company right now, but my intention is to really become a full-time entrepreneur, hopefully by 2025. And so that's my fear, right? Because I hear different stories from different people, how it's difficult, it's almost impossible. Like you want to have a job for 2 to 3 years because otherwise you won't be able to buy a property. So it's kind of alleviates a lot knowing that this is possible, right? That this is actually something that we can do and we don't have to necessarily worry. There are different, it's just different type of paperwork, right? It's different type of documents that they'll be asking of us, correct?
Correct. And I think having a CPA knowing what they're doing is a huge thing because we'll get people's tax returns and their CPA filed some weird way and it's
Yeah.
we can't really go back. I mean, they can't go back on it. So I think having a CPA that actually knows what they're doing and handling your business is a huge thing too. And another thing I feel like a lot of people don't realize, which again, I understand, when you are having that self-employment income, not claiming a negative because we have to use that negative against you. You know what I mean? Or, hey, I haven't filed my tax return since 2020.
Oh,
Unfortunately, we're going to have to, if you're going to go that route, we have to have an installment agreement or you're going to have to pay it. And that does suck, but I think that's a big takeaway too that people don't know. And it just depends on what loan program you're looking for. And that's kind of why like we have to see the tax returns up front. So then I could be like, hey, next year I need your CPA to file like this. You know what I mean? Just so that you're not getting screwed over too. Like, hey, you're good to go, and then I see the returns and I see a huge loss. Like, I we have to use that. Unfortunately, I don't want to, but and I get it as a business owner. Of course, why would you want to claim all that money? But it
right.
does sometimes come back at you, you know, and it sucks
Yeah.
because there is. But again, that I don't want people to get discouraged because there's so many different ways around having to do that program as well.
I love that. That does, like I said, it alleviates because
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to navigate through it. And it's really, again, we go back to asking the right questions. That's
Mm-hmm.
really what it's all about. Just like if you don't know, you ask and you make
Just
sure that
ask.
yeah, you ask the right questions just so you could get the answer that you need in order to move forward. So my whole takeaway right now is asking the right questions. Ask, 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 because there is nothing wrong with asking. The
No.
fault is when you don't ask, because then you don't know, and then you may be moving forward in the wrong way. And so,
Yeah.
definitely from all of this, like ask the questions. Just
I
make
think
sure you ask.
I think asking the questions up front and also disclosing everything up front are the two biggest things. The two biggest
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just as much as they have to be transparent, we also,
Yeah.
as buyers, have to be transparent in what's happening, even if yes, it could be a little embarrassing. Yes, there could be a little shame behind that because I feel like our communities have a lot of shame when it comes to money and to owning. And so being just transparent as possible will resolve the issues a lot faster. Mm,
Yeah, and there
yeah,
shouldn't be a judgment either. If you don't have the
right,
money, I'm not going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do a loan for you. And that since in that scenario, I'm just going to be like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to save, do as much as you can. And I think that's the biggest thing is people are so afraid to buy, which I get. That doesn't mean if I talk to you today that you need to go get a loan tomorrow. That could be, hey, I'm not ready for another year. Great. What are the next steps that we're going to do to help you get to that goal and get to that, hey, I don't have the money. Okay, no problem. Let's see a way that you're going to be able to save or what are your next steps now to make this goal come true for you necessarily.
right, right, right. No, thank you for beautifully saying that. I think that this is a message that a lot of us need to hear because no one says this to us, right? No one, they don't teach us
Yeah.
this. They don't teach us these things. They really don't. Sadly, they
No.
don't teach us these things. And that kind of goes into my next question, like, and this is something people may not even know, like, what do loans cover exactly? What do, it's crazy. It's a simple question, but I really
Yeah.
think that getting clarity on this question will alleviate a lot of what people are going through and maybe not asking the question. Now you have
Yeah.
a podcast episode where you have a loan officer actually answering this.
So loans cover, I mean, there's different loans, but since we're on the topic of mortgage loans are basically designed to obviously help individuals or families buy real estate. I mean, that's sum up really quick. Loans cover the costs of the property over itself, what it serves, and the collateral for the loan. The loan is to help you. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing. And again, back with the funds, down payment assistance. There's ways to help you, and that the loan is basically helping you buy your property or get that collateral, if you're doing a refinance on a property that you already have. So necessarily it just covers if you don't have the cash up front, because I know a lot of people don't just have $400,000 sitting around to just put down, you know what I mean? So
Right.
that's the basic thing of what loans cover is they're helping you necessarily have that real estate and do different options so you can buy, hey, I want to buy an investment property, I want to buy a second home, and you already have that mortgage history as well. Say you want to buy that investment property, you already have that first one. So they're basically just helping you get into a property or get a property or take the equity out of your property. There's a lot of things that go into a mortgage loan.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and I can imagine there's more thoroughness in this, but really over in a generalized sense, it's really helping you be able to get this dream home or be
Yes.
able to get this rental property or whatever it is exactly that you want. It's actually helping you through a bank
Yep.
obtain this goal because you don't have it in full cash,
Yep.
like to give it. Unless you do, I
To
mean,
give
that's
it.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
I mean,
do,
that's
great.
great.
Do
I'm like,
it.
that's, I mean, amazing.
If you do, call me.
Yeah, right. I'm like, this is amazing. I love that for you if
Yeah,
you
so
do.
necessarily it's just to help cover the cost of that property.
I love that. And then we're kind of heading into our last question, which is great. I love that first of all, I love your clarity because I feel like just all these questions were precisely answered, and they were also answered with such honesty that it just genuinely feels like we're learning so much in this episode. I'm learning with you guys, by the way. Whoever's listening to this, like I'm learning with you because I'm because I'm on a path of just gaining financial freedom myself, and with that,
Hmm.
for me, it's definitely 100% starting my real estate portfolio. So before I go into this last question, I just really wanted to thank you because
No,
it's
yeah, thank you. I mean,
it's
there's so
yeah.
much that goes into it again, and I feel like a lot of people don't know. And even us loan officers, we're learning stuff almost every other day. There's always something that comes up, and every individual is unique as well.
Hmm.
And that's a big thing as well. Different loan programs. Oh, my friend got this, blah, blah, blah. Well, you and your friend are completely two different people. And I think a lot of people don't
Right.
realize that, hey, my mom just bought, so this, blah, 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 blah. She didn't have to do this. Well, everybody's different. Every loan is different in its own different way. And I think there's so much to learn. We learn stuff all the time. Guidelines change all the time. Loan amounts change all the time. There's just so much to learn. So I feel like this is a good episode with just the basics. You know what I mean? Of kind of
Right.
where to start, what to do, what is a loan, you know? So,
Right, right,
and I
right. Just,
yeah.
yeah. Like I said, I'm learning with everyone and having someone, and as young as you know the process, it's really helpful. And I do feel like these are things that our schools should be teaching us. You
Exactly.
know, like we should have little classes of this rather than a social studies class that I don't remember. I don't remember calculus. I don't
Yeah.
remember using it, you know. It would have been
Yeah.
nice to have somebody teaching me about loans and teaching me
Mhm.
how I can get these loans and what documents that I need because honestly, when I was younger, I completely ruined my credit because I didn't care
Mhm.
and I didn't know. I really didn't know,
Yeah.
you know? So
Exactly.
it's just it's good to I wish schools taught us this. I
No, me
wish,
too.
but
And that's
yeah.
I if I wasn't in this industry, if you asked me what do I need to do to buy a house, I would tell you I have no
Hmm.
clue. And I feel like a
Right.
lot of people are like that. They have no clue. You could be the most successful person in the world. You could be a doctor. I mean, we have those loans
Hmm.
where we do doctors and they're like what, why do you need, you know what I mean? But
Right.
nobody knows unless you have somebody that's taught you or you kind of just know the basics. But a, I would say 90% of our people that are first time buyers have no clue what actually comes into it. And they're not at fault for that. We're just not taught it.
Right. We're just not taught it. Okay, so then what steps should we take, right? What steps, let's say one, two, three, right? Three steps, first steps that we should be doing to get ready for this process.
I think the biggest steps would definitely be credit. If you have any lates, take care of those lates on your credit. We don't want to see lates. I mean, it's your credit card. If you can't pay your credit card on time, why does the lender think that you're going to pay your mortgage on time? So I think credit
Right.
history is one of the biggest things, and which actually we didn't go over, and I'll just say it really quickly so I'm not
Yeah,
rambling
no,
on.
please, yes.
Student loans. A lot of people are like, hey, my student loans are deferred, my student loans are deferred, I have no payment. We still have to use a payment against you regardless. It could be a 0.5% or 1%. We have to use that payment against you. So I feel like credit is a huge, huge thing. Having those no lates, I would say funds, assets are the biggest thing. Even if you're doing down payment assistance, you still have to have some funds come in, and I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people don't know that either. They think, oh, down payment assistance, they're giving me a down payment. Yes, they are, but you still have to come in with some money. And I would just honestly, credit, income, funds, and commitment. You are going to be committed to this loan. Are you ready to be committed for, the
Mm-hmm.
standard loan is a 30 years. Are you ready to be committed to this? Are you ready to make these payments? Are you ready necessarily?
Yeah,
So
I
I
love
think the
the ready
biggest
part.
thing, yes, like
Yeah,
you think you could and you might not be able to make the payments. Hey, I know that I'm going to be losing my job in next year. You know what I mean? I don't know what the circumstances may
right.
be, but I think knowing that you have this commitment to this and are you able to do it? Income, make sure you're not switching jobs or, you know, doing all these different things and credit and funds, not having those large deposits. If you have $20,000 sitting around at home, deposit it and make sure it's seasoned for 2 months. And then, hey, we'll check back and see if this is the right option, or you know what I mean? I think those are the biggest things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I think a lot of what I'm taking from this is having proof of things. Everything needs to be documented. Your
Every
incomes,
little
yeah,
thing.
everything. Yeah, that's literally what I'm getting from all of this. I worked at a law firm years ago and I did 6 months of real estate. And so I know what you mean by needing absolutely every single thing documented. And if you don't, that's going to be an issue because they will not approve anything that's really not seen in documents. It's just the bank needs to trust you. This is like a trust
Yes.
relationship thing.
Yes.
It very much feels like, yeah. So the steps would be fix your credit, make sure that everything is being documented.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was that third?
It was income, commitment.
Commitment. Oh, of course, the biggest one. I'm like, how can I forget the biggest one? Oh my God. The biggest one, commitment. Just knowing what you're getting yourself into. People think, oh, yay, I'm gonna own a property and it's the American dream. But in reality, it's
Yeah.
like, are you committed for 30 years for this loan?
Yeah.
Are you? Do you have the capacity and the space and the want and the desire to really stay here and having a loan for the 30 plus years that you'll
Yeah.
have it?
Unless you are selling your house and you pay it off, but still, like, you still have to have that commitment. And I think also, even having a cosigner, hey, they're committed to that loan too. And that's a cosigner on
Yeah.
any loan you get, that's a big thing. And I kind of want to go back, sorry, on the documentation.
Yeah.
Some people will give us a hard time. Well, why do I have to provide that? Why do I have to provide that? I always like to use this, I guess, analogy. They're loaning you $500,000. If you were in that
Right.
scenario, wouldn't you want to see every bit of documentation? You know what I mean? It's a huge thing. There can't be shady stuff going on because it just won't fly, it won't work. But documentation is a huge, huge thing. If you have several different bank accounts that you are going to use throughout your transaction buying a home, great. I would say put it in one account because they are going to want to see every little paper trail. Oh, you transferred 5,000 to your Wells Fargo account, but it came from Bank of America. Like they need to see everything. So I would say
Yeah.
documentation is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah,
And like even
documentation.
credit, the credit, I think it scares people, but there's ways to get to where you need to be. And there's time. Like, hey, I'm going to pull your credit and hey, I see that there's 2 lates on it. Okay, well, I was late for this reason. Great. Let's try to get that taken care of. We don't want to see it. We don't want to see it.
Right. You don't want to see it. Yeah, and I think a huge thing that you said here was if you're loaning someone $500,000, you're gonna want some sort of documentation, some sort
Mm-hmm.
of clarity as to one, why you need it, and two, will you be responsible with it?
Yeah. How are you going to
Because
pay us back this money?
right, right. So yes, to the people are so hesitant to provide documentation, but I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And Janessa, do you have any last words for us regarding this? Like, is there any like little, and it's okay if you don't, like just any last words that you'd maybe want to leave us off with regarding, getting a loan officer or getting a loan in general or, anything that we may need.
I think the biggest thing would be don't give up. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it will be worth it. You will always have that property to yourself. You know what I mean? And I think that scares a lot of people and I don't want people to get scared. I mean, interest rates aren't the best right now, but there's always a refinance market and at the end of the day, you are always going to have that property. I don't feel like there's ever been a person that regrets having an investment. You're investing,
Right.
and I think the biggest thing is honestly don't get scared. Don't be afraid to think that you can't do it. There is always a way. It might not be in the vision that you see or the timeline that you see, but I don't think people should get discouraged because it can happen. And
I love that.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. I don't
No,
think
no, I love that. I love that. That was powerful. And the big thing is like not giving up because
yeah.
when we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it can feel very overwhelming and it could feel like,
Mhm.
I don't want to continue this. But really, I've learned, and not only through this, but through a lot of experiences, that not giving up is really one of the like it's just really something that you have to do.
Yeah.
Regardless, you're not going to see the light at the end of the tunnel if you are not navigating through what you have to push through, like fixing your credit, like
Yeah.
understanding why you need to fix your credit, why you need to provide these documentations to, a lender, or how much money you're going to get. Like these are just things that you need to push through because I feel like people grow when they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, we're students of life. And so
Mhm.
this is part of the learning process for us. So I really appreciate those last final words. And just to close this out, I always ask my guests three questions. There are three surprise
Oh,
questions.
okay.
And take your time. I don't want you to feel rushed. They're more to like lighten the mood from the whole conversation that we just
Okay.
had. So, question number one is, what's one word that describes the season you're in right now?
Growth.
Yes to that. I love that.
I would say growth, finding, I mean, my next steps and what I want to do and what I want to conquer. I feel like there's always room for growth no matter what. And yeah, growth.
Thank you for that. I feel like Janessa needs to come back on here and give us like a whole spiritual,
Yes.
conversation because this is amazing. Second question is one piece of advice that you'd want to leave behind if you had to leave the earth tonight. Take your time. I know this one's like a lot of people always get the shocking
Yeah.
effect. Yes.
A piece of advice is I would basically, I mean, it's so cliche, but do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah.
let somebody tell you that you can't because you can. And you literally only live once. If you want to go on that vacation, take that vacation. If you want to, like,
Yeah, we're
if
just not
you want to
here.
do it, do it. And I feel like that's a big, big thing. And just not being so hard on yourself. I feel like I've learned that in the past couple of years that I don't have to be perfect and it's okay. You
Mm,
don't have to have your life completely figured out and it's going to be okay. So I definitely think, honestly, doing what you want to do, what is best for you, not because someone's telling you to do it because you know that it's going to be best for you and benefit you. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Janessa. Yeah, no, it's true. We're not here a long time, so we have to make the
Yeah.
best of it. So I appreciate that answer. And the last question is, what's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Oh, the worst advice.
Hmm. I know people get stuck with this when they're like, wow, I've never thought
Yeah,
about that.
I really haven't. Let me pause for a second
Oh
because
yeah,
I
do
don't
it, do
know.
it, do it, do it. Yeah, please take your time.
I feel like I'm so stuck. I feel like the worst advice, back to my, I guess my last answer, is just like doing stuff for other people. Like, like I had this such as high expectation that I needed to
Mm,
finish college and I needed to do this and I needed to do that. So I feel like the worst advice is just somebody telling me that I really can't do something or I should do it the way they want me to do it. But I don't know. I feel like I'm very, and I know this sounds like not even conceited, but I feel like I'm gonna do what I want to do at the end of the day, if that makes sense. I feel like my worst advice
hmm.
would probably be when I was younger, and I honestly can't remember it. I feel like just being peer pressured would probably be my worst advice. But I feel like that's
Yeah.
such a loaded, deep question that I don't
Mm.
know.
I
I
think you
hate that
answered it
that's my
beautifully.
answer.
No, I think you answered it is so beautifully. I think you answered it the right way and the way that came up for you, which is the point of these questions, right? Like the first thing that came up to you was doing things the way people expect you to do them, really.
Yeah,
That's probably the worst thing that you've encountered. And so I think that that was a beautifully answered question. Again, don't be hard on yourself,
I
giving you
know.
your own
See?
advice. Janessa, well, I just wanted to thank you so much for getting on here, giving us all the lowdown of like all the information that we needed. I definitely feel like there is a second episode in our future just because there's so much more to uncover on
Yeah.
this subject. But just thank you. And I want to thank the audience for listening in, for just tuning in to each and every conversation that we have on this podcast. But yeah, thank you, Janessa. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I was nervous, and I even before I told my mom, I'm like, I'm nervous. She's like, just be yourself.
Oh,
So I really appreciate it, and I hope someone took away from something. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Even if it's not loan related, just don't give up on what you want your life to be.
I
So
love
I thank
it.
you.
No, thank you. And thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Till next time.